right. So let's carry on from where we left off. So what we want to do first of all is head over to our media folder, and since we deleted that object, this image won't be there anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this images folder. So right click on it and make sure you delete the images folder with the contents. So we don't want to have any issues or whatnot. So we're going to restart from the bottom here. Okay, so let's head over to our app and admin.py. Now we're going to restructure this to be classes instead of these simple sort of functions that we just insert a argument. So I'm going to remove this. And what are we going to do now is we're going to create sort of like a class here. So we're going to start off with the ampersand symbol, the @ symbol, and we're going to say admin.register. And here we're going to say category. Okay. And now we're going to create a class. Now you can call the class name anything that you like. So I'm going to say class, and then I'm going to say category admin, and I'm going to pass in admin.model admin. Okay, so we're going to create a class here. And the reason for creating this class with this fancy @ symbol here at the top is because we want to make use of something called a pre-populated field. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create two pre-populated fields to specify what fields are going to be populated based on another field. So in this case, okay, the slug field will automatically be populated once I type in the name of the category. So that's what we want to do. So to show you how to do this, you're just going to simply say pre-populated fields. So it's best to actually type the whole thing out, because what does tend to happen is Django does go ahead and add its own thing. So try to type it out manually. And what you want to do here is you just want to add curly braces, slug. Then you want to add in a colon. And then here within parentheses, you're going to say name. Okay. Now be sure after you've said name, just add a comma there right afterwards. Okay. And then what we want to do is we can copy this here. So we're using dry principles. So do not reuse, do not repeat yourself, sorry, excuse me. So we want to reuse code here, and here we're just going to switch this to title. So like I said earlier on, what we want to do is we want our slug field to be pre-populated with the value that we have in name and in title. So you saw me doing it manually earlier on, but now this time we are going to be having it pre-populated for us. So this is a very fancy trick that you can use. Only thing you need to do now is switch this out for product. Okay, and product admin. So make sure that you set that up accordingly. Okay, now just to double check that we're referencing the correct attributes, let's have a look. Head over to models and let's see what we got here. So as we can see here from our category model, we have our slug and we have our name. So essentially what's going to happen is our slug is going to be pre-populated. So it's going to be added automatically when our name is typed in, and it will also share the name value. And the same thing is going to happen with the product. So our product has an attribute called title, and essentially what's going to happen is the title value, the value of the title here is going to be appended automatically to the slug field automatically. All right, so that's what's going to happen in this case here. So do remember what I mentioned earlier on about slug. So it's kind of a special sort of field. And in this case, we're going to use it to, sort of route to our specific products in our URL. So that's essentially what we're doing here. Okay, that's looking good. And now I'm going to demonstrate this to you so you can see how it works. Okay, so that's fine. Restart our server. Let's run it, make sure we don't have any issues or whatnot, just to see. Okay, it's running fine. So we can refresh our admin page. So make sure you go in and add in your credentials. Right. So once you've added in your credentials, go ahead and log in. All right. Head over to categories. And now I'm going to show you how it's actually done here. So if we were to say add category and we add in a category name. So in this case, I'm just going to say shirts again. We can see it automatically gets pre-populated as a slug. That is what we're doing here. If we look at our admin.py, it gets pre-populated according to the value here. So under this name here, the slug is automatically being pre-populated as we can see here. So as we see fit, it's being set as we see. Okay, so that is what's going on here. So that is the basis here of what we need to do. So you can see how the pre-populated field is being sent over. So we're not going to put anything here for now. I just wanted to demonstrate this here. And if we head over to products and we add a product, so in Siri, what should happen is if we were to type in a value in title, slug is going to be automatically pre-populated with the data in the field or attribute title. So here, if I say, for example, Nike, let's say Nike Air Max Jordans, it's automatically going to be added to a slug, and we can see it's appended nicely, as we can see within hyphens. So later on, we could technically in the URL have something called like a route called search slash let's say, slash shirt / Nike Air Max Jordans to go to that URL of that item. Now, I know this is a bit abstract, but it will make sense as we slowly progress. So I just wanted to explain here the concept now of these pre-populated fields. So this makes it a lot easier and a lot better to understand. So we're not going to add anything just yet, so you can just leave it as is. So that is, in essence, the basics of what we need to do. So you can log out, and that is the advanced configuration that we will essentially set as we work on the course. Hi everyone, and welcome to the next hands-on activity where I'll be teaching you how to set up your admin page and just configure a few admin configurations for your models. So let's get started. Now head over to your project and head over to your app. In this case, mine is called Store, and you want to head over to admin.py here. Now the first thing that we want to do is we want to register our models. So to do that, we can say from dot, and the reason we're saying dot is because our models.py file is within our directory here. So we can say from dot models import, and then we can import our Django models. So they will call category and product. So we can refer to that. If we open this models.py here, we can refer to it as so category and product. Okay, so that is how we are referencing this accordingly. Now, before we go further, I just want to address sort of the elephant in the room here. So you will notice that this URL here won't work because we haven't configured it just yet, but don't stress, we will get to that at a later stage. So you don't need to worry about this for the moment, okay? We're not going to configure it just yet. Okay, so what I want us to do now is I want us to register our models. So here I'm just going to say admin.site.register. Now this is the easy way to do it. Okay, we're going to go a little bit more in detail. So you can go ahead and do the following as I do it. Product. Okay, so we're registering this. So when we log into our admin page, we will actually be able to see these models. Now, what we need to do to access this admin page is we need to actually go ahead and say python manage.py. So make sure you're on your virtual environment, everything is connected as follows, and you're in your project, and here you want to go ahead and say create super user. Okay. So I'm going to leave it blank as my name Arno, so I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to skip the email, set a password. Okay, let's set this. Okay, our super user is created. Now we can clear this up and we can run python manage.py run server. So go ahead and just run your server. Okay, it's running, it's active, great. So we'll be able now to access that URL that we saw earlier on, which is our admin page. So we can just say / admin to actually go ahead and access it, as you'll see in a moment. Now we are going to add a few changes here to admin.site. Okay, so it makes more sense. We're going to add something called pre-populated fields and connect our name attribute to our slug and our title attribute to our slug as well. So I will explain this in just a moment. So what I want us to do now is head over to our admin page. So we can simply just say / admin and go ahead and enter in your credentials. Right, so once you've entered in your credentials, go ahead and log in. Okay, so now let's do some explaining. So you'll see now we have our two models, category and product. Now you can notice the plural name, which I went ahead and assigned it. So if we were to head over to our store, models.py, and I just want to close this. Okay. What we can see here is I set a verbose name here, plural. So basically, by default, what's going to happen is you're going to see category was a spelled like CATEGORYS. So basically, by default, you're going to see category like this. Like that. Now, Django always appends an S, okay, onto your model name. Now, this doesn't make sense. So what I did was I went ahead and created this class meta data here. And what I'm doing essentially is I'm changing it from the default of this here to categories. So I'm renaming the model as I see fit in the Django admin page. That's what I'm doing here. And I do the same thing here with products by listing it as products like so. That is why it appears like so. So I'm literally changing the naming of our models in our admin page to what I want. Now you can change this to anything that you want here, and you can set your model name to whatever you would like here accordingly with this class meta. Okay, so that's what I'm doing there. Okay, now let me explain the second part. So the next thing I want to explain is this string function which I've defined here, where I'm returning the name and where I'm returning the title. So what we're going to do to test this out, we need to create an object. Okay, so by default, let me explain. Whenever you create an object, okay, without defining this string function, you're going to get, for example, if you create a category object, it's going to say category 1. And if you create a product object, by default, it's going to show product 1 by default. Now, what we want to do is we want to instead return the name of the category once we create a category, and we want to return the title of the product once we've created a product object. So now I'm going to show you how these functions are working as they should. So let's say we create a category first of all. Now this I'm going to call shirts, and the slug is going to be shirts. Okay, so now I'm just going to say save. Now I know this is a bit complicated, but I will explain it, don't worry. So I just want to first explain this function. So if we say save, great. So you can now see that it's not returning category 1 like it would by default. It's now returning, as we can see here, the name attribute. And we fill this name attribute with the name of shirts, which we defined here. So that is essentially what's going on here. Now we're doing the same thing with our product. So if we create a product, okay, and I call this, let's say, holiday shirt, holiday style shirt. Okay, unbranded, so you can see by default it's using the default field which we specified here as unbranded. So for each item, each product that we create by default, it's going to show unbranded each time unless we explicitly specify a brand to that product. Now we can add a description, so we're going to say stylish and just perfect for downtime. Okay, something very simple. Now the slug here would technically be shirts, but I'll show you how to add that automatically. And the price I'm going to set to $9.99. And we have to add an image, so I'm going to say choose file, and I'm going to choose shirt 1 here. And say save. Now you'll notice that the product name is returning now, instead of the default product 1 object, it's now returning the title, as we can see here. So holiday style shirt, it's now returning that. So it looks a bit cleaner. So whenever we look in our Django admin and we want to see all our products, we can see the product title and then edit it accordingly, instead of seeing product 1, product 2, product 3, which is very difficult to understand. So if we click on here, we can now see it's returning that title attribute here. So hopefully now that gives you a better understanding of what I did here by setting the class meta and by returning this string function here. So you now understand what is going on here. This is some extra functionality that I added. Okay, so that is what's going on here. So I wanted to explain that. Perfect. Now, while we're here at the moment, it's best to understand this where this image is coming from. So let's open this URL path. And let's evaluate this. So it's coming from media/images/shirt1.jpg. So essentially, what's going on here is if we head over to static and media, we can now see that we have media, images folder, and we have shirt 1 here. So what's going on here at this moment in time is essentially what's happening is we have our media folder which we created, and our image is being uploaded within our media folder within another folder called images, and there is our image itself. Now the reason why it's within this images folder is because we said that we want this image to be uploaded to images here. Now since we didn't create an images folder, it creates one for us. So whenever an image is now created from now on, it will be uploaded to this images folder within our media folder. So I just wanted to explain this file structure so you at least can understand the process. So Django knows to look for images in media, which pushes it to images, which we specified here. Okay, so I hope that also makes sense for you as well. All right, so that's what's going on here. Now, from now on, all images will be in here, and a new folder won't be created every time. It's just now going to be created the first time. Okay, so that is what we're doing there. So hopefully now you have a bit of a comprehensive understanding as to how the images are being rendered now, and you understand the basic idea of the functions that I used for returning the title here, and also how to go ahead and rename your products as follows. So what we're going to do now is just delete our categories here for now, and our product, we just want to delete this. Okay, let's delete that. So make sure you have nothing in here, and we are going to return to this. So we're going to just log out for the time being, and we can say log in again, and we can leave it at this page for now. Okay, so that is the first part to understanding the basic admin configuration. We are going to adjust it because there's things we need to add, and I'm going to teach you the more advanced part now. Next. Hi everyone, and welcome to the next hands-on activity where I'll be teaching you how to configure image uploads with Django. So we need to define in Django where our user uploaded content gets sent to. So to do this, we need to make use of something called media route, which we will set in settings.py. So let's get started. So head over to your main project settings.py. And here under static, we can go ahead and define 2 variables. Now the first variable will be called media underscore URL. And I'm going to set this as media, and I'm going to use the same style as static. Next, we need to set a media route, which is very similar to static files does in the fact that we are basically telling Django, hey, I want you to upload my picture at this location. So here I'm going to say media underscore route, and here I'm going to set the base directory, and that's going to be under static / and we can see it will be under media. Okay, so all my images will be under media like so. Okay, so go ahead and specify your media URL and your media route. Now, the last thing that we need to do, we need to actually configure and set this in our root directories urls.py. So that would be under here. So I'm going to open this in another section. And what I've done is taken the liberty of cleaning this up a little bit for you guys so it doesn't look so cluttered when you see it. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and import settings.py. We want to import this so we can make use of these variables media URL and media route. So we can just say here from django.conf import settings. All right, so we'll be able, like I said, to make use of these variables. And the next thing that we want to do is we actually want to make the connection between our, as we can see here, our base directory and our static files. So especially with our images, so we can say from django.urls.static, and then we want to say import static. So this is going to help us create a unique URL path similar to what we have here. For example, with our admin page, we want to have one uniquely for our images. So here we can say URL patterns plus equals, so that's sort of like an append sort of way of doing it, and we can say static, so we're making use of the static function which we imported, and here we can say settings.media underscore URL. Okay, so this is why we imported settings, so that we can just connect to this variable which we defined over here. So once we've got that set and ready to go, we can go ahead and say document lowercase underscore root equals settings dot media underscore root. So now we will have a unique URL path for our images. So to give you a bit more clarity here, so what's going to happen is if we were to access an image that we upload, so remember we have here in our store models, we defined an image attribute. So what's going to happen is it says upload to images. So what's going to happen is we already defined a media folder. So in this media folder, what's going to happen is when we go ahead and create, when we upload an image, what's going to happen is the first time we upload an image is going to create a directory called images, which is going to be in our media folder. And from then on, all images that are uploaded to Django will be in media and then /images. Okay, but I will demonstrate this soon enough, so don't worry about that, I will explain. Okay, so that's what we have for now. So we have successfully gone ahead and we've connected our images to our Django application by setting the urls.py accordingly, so our unique image URL. And we've also gone ahead and just configured those settings that we need to actually connect and to actually upload images appropriately and connect the paths. Okay, so that is it for this part. Everyone, and welcome to the next hands-on activity where I'll be teaching you how to configure static files for Django. So let's get started. First thing that you want to do is head over to your project here, and you want to go ahead and create a new folder. So I'm going to call this static. So just make sure you create this folder in your base directory here as follows. Next, I want to create three directories or three subfolders. One for my CSS files, another for my JavaScript files, and one for my images, which will be referenced as media. So here I'm going to create a new folder called CSS. Then make sure you right click on static when you create these folders, and here I'm going to create one called JS for JavaScript, and right click on static, new folder, and the last one will be called media. Okay, so here our images will be situated. So CSS, JS, and media. All right, so we have that all set and ready to go. Next, we need to head over to our main project settings.py. And if we scroll down all the way here to the bottom, we should see our static URL. Now, what I always like to do is just put in a / here behind as well, just my personal preference. And what we want to now go ahead and do is we want to connect our static folder in Django. So basically here was this static URL. We're letting Django know about the static folder. Now we need to tell Django where to connect to it. So here we need to say static files underscore dirs, and then here we're going to set it to base dir / static. Okay. And we need to, of course, close this up with our square brackets. So to make sure everything's running as it should, you can go ahead and just go ahead and say python manage.py run server, give that a run, and let's just see if everything's working as it should be. Okay, everything's running, so that's looking good. So make sure that you have that configured, and that is how you would configure static files in Django. Right. So let's move on to the next part, and that is to add our image field to our model. Now, the reason I comment this out is because we can't migrate this yet, because what we need to do is we need to make sure that we install this package here called Pillow. Now, Pillow is an image processing library in Python that helps us to utilize images within our Django application. So we need to install this package. Now, what you can do is head over to your CMD or your terminal, make sure you're in your virtual environment. And all you want to do is just copy this over. And in here, you just want to say pip install Pillow. Very important to bear in mind that you need to be in your virtual environment for this. So go ahead and install Pillow. Okay, I already have it installed, so you can say pip list just to verify this. So let's go ahead and check to make sure it's here. And there is Pillow all set and ready to go. Perfect. So this is looking good. All right, so now you can go ahead and uncomment this. And what we want to do now is make our migrations. So by running the make migrations command, we are essentially prepping our migrations. And then by migrating our migrations, we are going to be sending them to our SQLite database, which we get by default with Django. So make sure you're in the following directory, and you can run python manage.py make migrations. So go ahead and do just that. Okay, so it's created a migrations file for us here, created our two models, and now let's go ahead and migrate it. But before we do that, actually, let's just type the command and just wait just a moment. If we head over to store, we can now see that our migrations folder was built for us. And within that migrations folder, we can see our migrations for our two models, product and category, all set and prepared and ready to go. So what we can actually do now is we can actually go ahead now and we can actually push this. So we can now say python manage.py migrate, and we can just go ahead and run that. And everything's looking good and ready to go. So this may look different for you, okay? Because I went ahead and just did some testing. So technically, if you say python manage.py migrate, you should see this whole migration list appear along with all of the installed apps that you've gone ahead and migrated by default. So make sure that you at least just run this command and set that accordingly. Okay, perfect. So that is as it should be. So we've added our image field, we've made our migration, so make sure your migration is set and that you've run the following commands. All right, so that is it for our image field and our migrations, of course. Hi everyone, and welcome to the next hands-on activity where we are going to get stuck into building our models. So let's get started. So we can head over to our e-commerce project, head over to our store app, and then we want to open our models.py file. Okay, so we have it open here and set and ready to go. So let's get started. So we're going to create our first model. Okay, and that model will be based on our category. So we need to have different sort of categories for the products that we are going to have. So for example, we can have a category for shoes, a category for shirts, a category for books, for example, horror books, science fiction books, or this can be a category for different types of foods like dairy, or it can be, for example, vegetables and fruits. So we need to have a category. So for any e-commerce store that you're building, you need to have a category. So let's go ahead and say class category. So we're going to name it category. And here we're going to just simply create a model here as follows. Okay, so the first thing that we need to have is a category name. So we want to have a list of different categories. So like I said earlier on, shoes, pants, socks, etc. So we need to create a name, attribute, or field. Okay, and it's going to be very simple. It's going to be based on a char field, so very straightforward. And I'm going to set two parameters here. The first one is the max length, because it doesn't make sense to have a category that has 1,000 characters. So we're going to limit this to 250 characters is solid. Next, we want to set db index to true, and I'm going to explain as to what this is. So basically, db index, okay, if we set it to true, okay, this is used for query acceleration, and it can be used to improve memory usage and for faster lookups in our database table. Okay, so instead of reading the entire database table or our model until it finds the required attribute, it's going to stop once it's found the attribute and not read the entire model. Okay, so that's basically what this db index is for. Next thing that we need to do is we need to create a slug, okay, and this slug is going to be used to get a particular category. So we're going to say slug, I'm going to say models.slug field, and within that we're going to pass two parameters again. So it's going to be max length, and I'm going to set it to 250, that's a good solid number, and we need to make this true. So we're going to say unique equals true, because basically we do not want to have more than one category. So what I mean by that is we can't have a category for shirts and then another category for shirts. That doesn't make sense. We need to only have one category, and it needs to be unique. So one for shoes, one for shirts, one for pants, one for books, one for whatever. So this is what I mean by that. So basically, I'm going to show you how this slug sort of will operate. So it's very similar to like a route in our URL. So basically, what's going to happen is, let's say we have our store, okay, and we're going to have a /, and then here, for example, we can have something like shoes, or we can have a category for shirts, or a category for let's say pants. Okay, so that is basically how a slug field will operate. And later on, we'll extend it to be a bit more specific. So it's going to show something like shoes and then / something like Nike Air Jordan. So it's going to have the category and the product. So something similar to that. Okay, so I just want to show you the basic idea. So by looking at our slug field, we're going to have our categories similar to the following, as you can see here. Okay. So that's just a general idea of it. All right, so that is our slug field. So another reason as to why we want to have we want to set the unique property for our slug field is because of the limitations that it has in the fact of special characters, etc. Perfect. Now that's all we actually need for this point here for our category. Very simple. And now here, what we want to do is we want to define some metadata. So to do that, we can say in our class here, category, we can say class meta. And what we want to do here is say verbose underscore name underscore plural. And here we're going to set this to categories. Now, for those of you that's probably never seen this, okay, I'm going to explain. So by default, whenever we create a model in Django, it always appends an S. So when you register it in your admin page, it's going to say categories like this in your model. Now, this doesn't make sense. This is not English. So what we're going to do is override that and set it to categories. So this makes more sense. So we have IES instead of categories with the S at the end. So that's what we're doing here. But I will show you this later on when we configure our Django model, so it makes more sense to you. Okay. So that's basically what we're changing here. We're changing that object name. All right. So once we register the models, like I said, we will go into further detail. All right. Now let's do the next part. So let's go to the next part. So here we're going to define a function here. So a string function. So we're going to say def double underscore str double underscore, and here we're going to pass in self. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say return self.name. So basically with this, okay, when we create an object or record within our models, we're going to see a default. So for example, we're going to possibly see in our admin something like category 1 or category 2. So this is basically what we see by default whenever we create an object for this model. So we want to change this up. So by returning self.name, we want to return this attribute name here. So let's say our category is shoes or our category is shirts. We instead are going to see it a little bit better in such a case where we actually see the name category. So for example, we'll see shirt, or we're going to see shoes like that. Okay, so this will make sense once we work on the Django admin and register. So just bear with me on this. All right. So that's what we have there. Okay. So we just want to name it a little bit better so it's a bit clearer. Okay. So that's our category model done. Next, we want to move on to creating our product model. Okay. So this is for all of our products. We're going to have certain attributes and fields, etc. Okay. So let's go ahead and do just that. So I'm just going to say class product. And we're going to just create a normal model here. So pass in the required parameters. And we need a few fields here. So let's think to ourselves. So we want to create a product. So the first thing we need is a title. So the title of our product. So this can be a Versace shirt or a Versace new shirt. So we need a title. And we're just going to set it to the char field. So this is like a shorter form of the text field data type. Max lengths, let's set this to, let's say, I think 250 is fine. So let's double check. Oh, we don't need quotes for this. Excuse me. And then we can just leave that as is. Next, we want to set a brand. So we can decide whether we want branded items. So I'm just going to say brand models.char field, max lengths. 250 as well is fine. And I'm going to set a default parameter, default value here, and that's going to be unbranded. So just an unbranded item for one of our products. So I'm just going to set it as follows. So whenever an object is created, whenever a product is created, the default field for this brand attribute here will be set to the value of unbranded. Okay, now we need a description. So we want a description for our project. So a little bit of information. So let's say we're buying a horror book. We want some information about that horror book. So just a brief synopsis. So here we can just say models.text field. So I'm going to now utilize a text field, and the reason for this is a char field is a bit small, so if you want to add extra information, we can upgrade to the text field. So our char field is for basically text in a shorter format, and text field is for a lot of characters, basically. Okay, so I'm just going to enter this and say blank equals true. The reason for that I'm setting it to blank equals true is I want this to be optional and not something that needs to be forced whenever we create our product ourselves. So we want this to be optional for our users. So that's the reason for setting blank equals to true. All right, so the next thing that we need to actually go ahead and do is we need to actually go ahead and set a slug field as well in this case here. So we're going to set a slug field. So models.slug field, and you'll see later on as we register this model, it will make clearer sense as we work on this. So we also need a slug field for this. Okay, then we need to set a price. So I'm going to say models.decimal field for this case, because technically when it comes to products, you need to have sort of a decimal field. So you always see products cost like $9.99, $12.99, $4.99, etc. So that's the reason for this decimal field. We can't keep it as a pure integer. And I'm going to set the max digits here. So the maximum amount of digits, and I'm going to set this to 4. I think that's appropriate. More than 1,000 is a bit crazy. And decimal places I'm also going to set, so this gets formatted a bit nicely. So I'm going to set that to 2 decimal places. Okay. Perfect. So there is the basics that we have for our product model there. So we've created a product model here with the following attributes and fields, as you can see. All right, perfect. Right, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to actually go ahead and we want to create an image field. So we want an image to be associated with a product. So to do this, we need to say image equals models dot image field. We need to use the image field data type, and I'm going to say upload underscore to, and I'm going to set this to images. Now basically what's going to happen is later on we're going to create a media folder, okay, in our base directory, and we're going to create a folder called images. Okay, but more on this soon enough. So we will need a package to make use of this image field, but for the moment, I'm just going to comment this out just for now. Okay, perfect. Now, the next thing that we are going to need to do is to evaluate what we are doing here. So when we come at this slug field here, so the reason that we need this slug field is because all of our products are going to be unique. So the same reason for category. So we're going to have a category called shoes, and it doesn't make sense to have another category called shoes. It needs to be unique. That's why we're adding a slug field here for the product as well, because we want a unique product. So what I mean by that is, let's say we have a pair of Nike Air Jordans, and that is Nike Air Jordan 1. We cannot have another Nike Air Jordan 1. Or we can't have a horror book called Frankenstein and another horror book called Frankenstein. It doesn't make sense. This is the reason for using slugs, because we want unique products and we want a unique category. And that is also singular. Okay, so that is the reason for that. Now we're going to do what we did before. So we're going to also define class meta. So we can actually copy all of this here. All right, so it's good to reuse code here and add it there. Now all we need to do here is we need to set the name here. So instead of it saying products in our admin, we want it to rather say products like so. Let's type that in. Okay, so this will be a bit clearer. And then also when it comes to the object name here, it's by default going to show like product 1 and it's going to show product 2. Okay, we don't want this. So what we're going to do instead is we're just going to mix this up, and instead we're going to say self.title. So whenever we create a new product or add one, we will see it referenced by the title in our admin page. So here we're going to say title. Hi everyone. and welcome to the next hands-on activity. We'll be learning how to create a Django app. So it's very simple. So what we're going to do is we're just going to head over to our terminal and we can just stop it. So easy way to stop this is to press Control and C. Okay, so this will end it, and let's clear it up by typing CLS. Okay, perfect. Now we're all here and ready to go. Now what we can do is we can actually go ahead and create a Django app. Now to do this, we need to say Django-admin start app. Now make sure that you're in the same directory as me. So make sure that was in your project here and that your virtual environment is active. It's a good rule of thumb to just keep that going. Now, what we need to do here is create our Django app. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and start my first app with the name of store. So we're going to create multiple apps within this course. So to begin with, we're just going to create our store app. So go ahead and just press enter. All right, there we go. Let's verify this. Let's head over to our e-commerce project. And what we can do is we can see here that we have our store app here all set and ready to go. So we can go to our e-commerce project, head over to settings, and what we need to do is we need to configure that app here with our list of installed apps that we have here, as you see. So what we can do is very simple. We can just go ahead and put in our app, which is called store, which is here, and we can just put a comma at the end, and that's it. So that is how you would create a app in Django and just simply go ahead and configure it. And what I like to do here is just add a comment here that says Django app. So I'm aware of what is my Django app. All right, so that's it. So make sure that you create your Django app. So I've called mine store and just start off from there. All right, so that's that for this part.